What would you do if the darkness behind you held a man with a gun, but the voice ahead of you promised safety? This was the question Nora Winters faced the moment she began running for her life through the tall Nebraska corn. The night sky above her glowed faint purple as the last light of day faded away. Nora's breath tore through her chest, each step sending sharp pain through her legs. The cornfield around her felt endless, the stalks whipping against her arms and face as she pushed forward. Somewhere behind her came the terrifying sound of men shouting. 3 men. The same men who had chased her from the train station. The same men who had watched Jasper Holcomb shoot a rancher dead. And the same men who now wanted her silenced forever. Her foot caught on a root, and she stumbled, scraping her palms against the dry earth. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead, dripping into her eyes. She blinked hard, fighting the dizziness creeping in. She could not stop. She could not fall. If she did, they would kill her within seconds. Just when her strength began to fail, a deep voice echoed through the corn like a lifeline. "Keep running toward my voice." Nora froze for a heartbeat. The voice was strong, steady, and close enough to feel real. A stranger. A man she could not see, but the danger behind her snapped her forward again. "This way, miss." "Don't stop." Her legs moved before her mind could question it. She pushed through the heavy stalks, her heart pounding loud enough to drown out her fear. That voice guided her through the darkness, calling out every few seconds so she wouldn't lose her way. Left. 20 more yards. "You're almost there." She burst through the final wall of corn and stumbled into a small clearing. Her breath caught at the sight of a tall cowboy, seated atop a golden palomino horse. His face was shadowed beneath the brim of his hat, but she caught a glimpse of sharp features and eyes that watched her with swift, assessing intensity. "Take my hand," he ordered. The shouts behind her grew louder. Nora didn't hesitate. She reached up, and with a single powerful pull, he lifted her onto the horse behind him. "Hold tight." She wrapped her arms around his waist, clutching the rough fabric of his coat as the horse lunged forward. They shot into the darkness just as the 3 men burst out of the cornfield. Gunshots cracked through the air. Nora ducked, pressing her face into the cowboy's back as he spurred the palomino into a full gallop. "Heads down," he warned, steering them into the shadows of the open prairie. The wind stung her face as they rode, the ground rumbling beneath the pounding hooves. Fear twisted in her chest, but she forced herself to breathe. She wasn't alone anymore. Whoever this man was, he had chosen to help her. That had to mean something. After several minutes, when the night had grown still again and no more gunfire followed them, the cowboy finally slowed the horse to a steady trot. "Name's Brock Callahan," he said over his shoulder. His voice was deep and slightly rough, like gravel warming in the sun. "And you, miss, look like you're in a world of trouble." Quote. Nora swallowed hard, her voice shaking. I didn't mean to bring danger to you." "Too late now," he replied simply. "But you're safe for the moment." He guided the horse toward a narrow creek, its silver water reflecting the rising moon. "We'll stop here." "Let the horse drink," he said, pulling the reins gently. When he dismounted, Nora tried to swing her leg over, but her body trembled so badly that she nearly fell. Brock caught her by the arms, steadying her with surprising gentleness. "Easy now," he murmured. Under the moonlight, she could finally see him clearly. Broad shoulders, tall, strong build, a rugged face marked by a scar running from temple to jaw, but his eyes stood out most. A piercing blue, strangely calm despite everything. "Thank you," she whispered. "Those men were going to kill me." "I reckon they were," Brock answered, kneeling by the creek to drink. "Mind telling me why?" Nora hugged her arms around herself, the night breeze sending a shiver through her torn dress. "I saw Jasper Holcomb murder a man at the Red Cloud station. I thought I could slip away unnoticed, but his men saw me. I ran, and they followed." Brock cursed under his breath. "Holcomb," he muttered darkly, "owns half this county. Thinks he owns the rest too." Nora nodded, tears burning her eyes. "I was trying to reach my uncle in Hastings. I have nowhere else to go." "Hastings is 2 days from here," Brock said. "And Holcomb's men will be watching every road." He paused, studying her with a look she couldn't read. "I've got a cabin up in the hills," he said quietly. "Remote, safe. You can stay there while we figure out your next move." Nora blinked at him, startled. "You'd help me? After everything?" A shadow passed over his eyes. "Holcomb took someone from me too," he said softly. "My brother." The sorrow in his voice made her chest ache. "I won't pretend it'll be easy, but I don't aim to let Holcomb keep tearing apart lives." He stood and offered her his hand. "Come on, Miss Winters. We ride before they catch our trail again." For the first time since the nightmare began, Nora felt something stirring inside her. "Hope, thank you," she said. This time her voice was steady. Brock nodded once, firm and sure. "Let's get you safe." They mounted the horse together and disappeared into the dark Nebraska hills, unaware that this night would bind their lives forever. Nora woke to the soft crackle of a fire and the smell of warm cornbread drifting through Brock Callahan's small cabin. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memories of the cornfield, the chase, and the gunshots rushed back, tightening her chest. But the cabin around her was quiet, peaceful. Morning sunlight filtered through the window, lighting up the wooden walls. Brock stood near the stove, his back to her, stirring something in a small pot. His broad shoulders moved with slow, controlled steadiness. Even in simple chores, he carried himself like a man who had seen too much. "You're awake," he said without turning. "Good, you needed the rest." Nora sat up slowly, pushing away the quilt he had wrapped around her during the night. Her body ached, her forehead throbbed, and her legs felt like they had been carved from stone. But she was alive. She touched the wound on her forehead and winced. "You should let me clean that," Brock said, as he came over with a damp cloth. He crouched beside the bed, his touch gentle as he wiped the dried blood from her face. She watched him, noticing the faint bruising along his jaw and the exhaustion in his eyes. He had risked everything for her. A stranger. A woman he didn't know. "Why would you help me?" she whispered. He didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened slightly. "Because I couldn't ride past knowing someone needed saving," he said softly. "And because Holcomb's hurt enough people. I won't let him hurt another." His voice held something heavy. Pain, anger, and something she couldn't quite name. When he finished tending to her wound, he stood and handed her a small tin plate. "Eat. You'll need your strength. We've got a long day ahead." She ate quietly at the small table, tasting flavors she hadn't expected from such a rough-looking cowboy. Warm cornbread, fresh eggs, strong coffee. Simple food, but it filled her in a way Boston meals never had. As she sipped her coffee, Brock leaned against the mantel, arms crossed. "Holcomb won't stop," he said. "Not until you're dead or silenced. And anyone who helps you becomes his enemy. That includes me." Nora looked down at her plate, guilt tightening her throat. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to bring danger to anyone else." He shook his head. "None of this is your fault. Holcomb made his choice. Now I'm mocking mine." She met his eyes, struck by the quiet certainty in them. "What do we do now?" she asked. "You're going to learn," Brock said firmly. "Everything you need to survive out here. How to ride, how to shoot if you have to, how to hide your tracks. You'll be stronger than Holcomb expects." Nora nodded, though fear stirred inside her. She had never handled a gun, never slept alone in the wilderness, never imagined herself as anything but a city woman passing through this land. But this land was no longer just a place she traveled through. It was the place trying to kill her, and the place where one man was determined to keep her alive. Brock set his coffee down. "We start with the horses." He led her outside to the corral, where his palomino and a smaller bay mare grazed lazily. The sun was rising over the hills, bathing the valley in golden light. "This is Sundown," he said, patting the palomino's neck. "And the mare is Penny. She's gentle. She'll be yours as long as you're here." "My own horse?" Nora asked, surprised. "Every woman on the frontier needs one," Brock replied. "This land eats the weak alive. You're not staying weak." He taught her how to mount properly, how to sit straight, how to hold the reins without choking the horse. At first, she wobbled so much she nearly slid off. But Brock steadied her each time with a calm hand and a quiet word. "You're thinking too much," he told her with a faint smile. "Let Penny carry you. Let her feel you trust her." After several tries, she managed a smooth circle around the corral, then another. Then a trot that sent her bouncing awkwardly, but she didn't fall. Brock watched her with an approving nod. "You're learning fast." Nora felt a warm flutter in her chest. Pride, hope, something more dangerous too. Something she tried not to look at too closely. By midday, they had ridden out into the open hills, Brock guiding her through little trails, teaching her how to read the land, how to follow a creek, how to move quietly through the brush. Every moment he was near her, Nora felt something shift inside her. Not fear, but something that made her breath catch in ways the danger never had. At the top of a hill, they stopped to rest. The valley stretched below them, wide and wild. Brock sat beside her, drinking from his canteen. The breeze lifted the brim of his hat, revealing those striking blue eyes. "Nora," he said quietly. "About Holcomb, there's something I didn't tell you." She turned toward him, heart thumping. "Holcomb didn't just take my brother," Brock said. "He ruined my whole family. My father died fighting for our land. My mother died not long after from heartbreak. Holcomb didn't kill just Thomas. He killed everything we had." Nora's eyes softened. "I'm so sorry." Brock looked down at his hands. "I've been waiting for a chance to bring him down, and now maybe you're that chance." A chill ran through her. "Me? How?" "You saw him kill a man. You can testify." The marshal in North Platte is one of the few men around here who isn't afraid of Holcomb. But we need evidence and a plan. "Then we'll find it," Nora said, surprising herself with her own strength. Brock smiled faintly. "You're braver than you think." She opened her mouth to reply, but the sudden, sharp crack of a gunshot echoed across the valley. Brock grabbed her arm and pulled her behind a fallen log. More shots followed. Nora's breath hitched. "They found us!" Brock scanned the ridge above them. 3 riders. Holcomb's men. Nora's heart pounded. "What do we do?" Brock's jaw clenched. "We ride, now." They ran to the horses, mounting fast. Brock leaned close to her. "Stay right behind me, no matter what happens." Nora tightened her grip on Penny's reins. "Brock," she whispered, "what if they catch us?" His voice was steady. "They won't, as long as you keep running toward my voice." Quote. The world around Nora exploded into motion as Brock kicked Sundown into a sprint. Penny followed fast as the thunder of hooves filled the air. Nora leaned low over the mare's neck, gripping the reins with trembling hands. The wind whipped her hair back as they raced across the open prairie. Gunshots cracked behind them. "They're gaining!" Nora cried. "Stay with me!" Brock shouted over the pounding hooves. "Don't fall behind!" The riders crested the hill, their silhouettes sharp against the rising sun. Holcomb's men fired again. A bullet whistled past Nora's arm, close enough to raise goosebumps along her skin. Penny jerked but kept running, trust and fear pushing her forward. Brock angled them toward a narrow ridge. "There's a pass up ahead," he called. "They'll have trouble following us through it." Nora didn't question him. She followed the sound of his voice, every instinct screaming at her to stick as close to him as she could. They reached the ridge, where rocks crowded the path and brush snagged at her skirt. Nora clung tighter as Penny scrambled over loose stones. Behind them, the shouts grew louder. The men were trying to force their horses up the same path. Brock twisted in the saddle and fired 2 quick shots. One man shouted in pain, falling from his horse and tumbling down the rocky slope. The other slowed, cursing. "That'll buy us a moment," Brock said, breathing harder now. But only a moment. Once they cleared the ridge, Brock guided them into a grove of cottonwoods by a small stream. The air here was cooler, quieter for a breath of time. Nora slid from Penny's back, her legs shaking. "Brock, are we safe?" "Not yet," he said, tying Sundown quickly. "They'll come through. We need to move again." Nora reached for the saddlebag when she froze. The stream water rippled strangely, a reflection, Movement behind her. "Brock!" she choked out, but she didn't have time to warn him. A gunshot slammed through the grove. Nora dropped to her knees, ears ringing. Brock spun around, gasping as a bullet tore through his upper arm. Blood soaked his sleeve. "Get down!" he shouted. Two riders burst from the trees, guns raised. Brock fired first, hitting one in the shoulder. The man toppled from his saddle, hitting the ground with a cry. The other charged straight at Nora, gun pointed at her chest. She froze. She couldn't scream, couldn't move. Then Brock dove between them, knocking her onto the ground as another shot cracked through the air. "Stay down!" he roared. Nora's vision blurred, fear choking her. The rider circled around again, raising his pistol. Brock snapped off another shot, and this time the man fell from his horse, collapsing in the dirt. Silence crashed over the grove. Only Brock's labored breathing broke the stillness. Nora crawled to him, her hands trembling. "You're hurt. Let me see." "I'm fine," Brock grunted, though his face had gone pale. Bullet went clean through. "That's not fine." Tears filled her eyes. "You could have died." He reached up with his good hand and pushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek. "And leave you out here alone?" he said softly. "Not a chance." Her heart clenched. Before she could speak, Brock stiffened. "We need to get moving. Holcomb has more men." Nora swallowed hard. "Where do we go?" Quote, "To the marshal," Brock said. "He's our only hope." With effort, he mounted Sundown. Nora quickly climbed onto Penny. Together they rode north, keeping to brush and shadows. Brock's arm dripped blood, and his posture sagged with pain, but he pressed forward without complaint. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher. The danger chased every hoofbeat. By the time they reached the outskirts of North Platte, Nora was nearly falling from exhaustion. She helped Brock dismount outside the marshal's office and burst inside. "Marshal Davis!" she cried. "Please, you must help us!" The marshal rose from his desk, startled. "Miss Winters, what happened?" Nora pointed outside. "Brock, he's hurt. Holcomb's men are after us. Please!" The marshal hurried out, helped Brock inside, and began bandaging his wound. Brock sat stiffly but didn't complain. "You're lucky, Callahan," the marshal said. "Another inch and it'd been your chest." Brock gave a tired half-smile. "Luck's got nothing to do with it. Just grit." Quote, Nora stood beside him, hands clasped tight. "Marshal Holcomb killed a man. I saw it. Brock saved my life. And now Holcomb's hunting us both." The marshal studied them for a long moment, then nodded grimly. "I've suspected Holcomb for years, but I never had a witness brave enough to speak. If what you say is true, Miss Winters, we can bring him down." Brock looked at her, pain tightening his jaw. "You ready for that?" he asked quietly. Nora met his eyes. "Yes, I'm done running." She took his hand. He squeezed hers, his blue eyes softening. "We face this together," she said. "Together," he agreed. Before the marshal could speak again, a deputy burst through the door. "Marshal, Holcomb's riders are on the north road, headed this way!" Nora's heart lurched. Brock pushed himself to his feet despite his injury. "Let them come," he said. "We're not hiding anymore." The marshal grabbed his rifle. "Both of you stay behind me. We'll end this tonight." Outside, the sounds of hoofbeats thundered toward town. Nora stood beside Brock, fear twisting with fierce determination. For the first time, she wasn't just running toward his voice. Together, they were standing their ground, and Holcomb would not win.